Welcome back to 15-Minute Discourse, everybody. Today we're diving deep into something that almost sounds like science fiction, but it's really not.
It really isn't, no.
We're talking about biofabrication of human organs.
Yes.
So let's try to unpack all of this incredible stuff.
Yeah, I mean, incredible advancements, but also some ethical things to think about as well.
Definitely. And get ready for a wild ride, because we're going to be talking about stuff like using spinach leaves to grow heart tissue.
Right.
And the history of 3D printed bladders.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild world out there. So to get us started, what is the most basic question here?
Well, I think the most basic question is, can we build a human organ from scratch? And I think that's something that scientists and philosophers have been thinking about for centuries.
Yeah.
And now, with biofabrication, it's actually becoming a reality.
So, artificial organs in general. Are we talking about something that is totally new?
Not at all.
Okay.
We've had artificial limbs for centuries. Think about peg legs. But now we have these incredibly sophisticated prosthetics. They're using carbon fiber and electrodes that can actually interface with the nervous system. It's unbelievable.
So they're not just replacing the limb, they're actually trying to get back.
They're trying to restore functionality, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. But it's not just limbs, right?
Oh, no, not at all.
The sources you sent talk about all kinds of stuff.
All kinds of artificial organs, bladders, even mini brains. Yeah.
Okay, we are really getting into science fiction territory now.
I know. It's
Yeah?
really fascinating stuff. Researchers are looking at replacing bladder function in different ways. Sometimes they use intestinal tissue.
Okay.
And they're also exploring stem cell methods to regenerate bladders.
Okay.
And then you mentioned the mini brains. Those are called brain organoids, and they're actually being used to study neurological diseases and to develop new drugs.
That's amazing. So, we are creating organs in a lab now, so we have to talk about,
The ethics.
the ethics of this, yeah.
Absolutely.
Where do we even begin?
Well, I think one of the biggest concerns is animal testing.
Yeah.
Almost every artificial organ that's used in humans, it's tested on animals first. And that raises all sorts of questions about animal welfare.
And then what about, the first human trials? Who are those people?
Yeah, so the first people who get these artificial organs are often patients who are facing life-threatening conditions, and they've tried everything else, and this is really their last hope.
Okay, so then you get into questions of
Ethical questions there. And I think it's really important to have this conversation, not just among scientists and medical professionals, but also the public. These technologies, they could affect all of us.
it's a balance, isn't it? Because you want to progress, but you also want to make sure you're doing it in the right way.
It's a tough balance.
Okay, so, artificial organs are sort of the broad category, but we want to talk specifically about biofabrication.
Yeah.
Can you explain what that is?
So biofabrication is this really revolutionary area within artificial organ development.
Okay.
It's using 3D printing and other techniques to actually create functional organs from cells and other biological materials.
Oh, wow. So you're actually building something from the ground up, like cell by cell.
Exactly. It's amazing. And actually, a big milestone in biofabrication happened back in 1999. Scientists were able to create functional bladders using these techniques. That was huge. It really showed the potential of biofabrication to create complex organs that could actually be implanted in humans.
And then, this is something that's ongoing, right?
Absolutely. It's an evolving field. In 2017, there were some updates on stem cell research for bladder regeneration. So, they're constantly finding new ways to improve these techniques.
Okay, so we've got some really fascinating milestones and, just this general progress of biofabrication. Did you find any, particularly mind-blowing examples in the sources?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There were a couple that really stood out to me. One was scientists growing beating human heart tissue on spinach leaves in 2017.
Hold on. So they're using spinach leaves as the...
It's incredible. They're using spinach leaves as a scaffold. So the vein structure in a spinach leaf is surprisingly similar to the network of blood vessels in the human heart.
Wow.
So they use the spinach leaf as this framework, and then they grow human heart cells on it.
That's incredible. So it's almost like, I don't know, like a framework, right?
Yeah.
Like a blueprint for the cells to build on.
That's a great way to put it.
And what other examples?
Another really fascinating one from 2017 was the creation of an artificial thymus.
An artificial thymus.
Yes.
Okay, remind me what the thymus does.
So the thymus is this small gland in your chest, and it's really important because it produces T cells,
Oh, right. T cells.
which are a type of white blood cell.
Yeah.
They're critical for our immune response, so they help us fight off infections.
Right.
They even protect us from cancer. So having an artificial thymus could be really groundbreaking, especially for people with immune deficiencies
Right.
or those undergoing cancer treatments.
Makes a lot of sense. So we've talked about hearts, we talked about thymuses. What other organs are they working on biofabricating?
Well, they've made significant progress in developing artificial ovaries.
Really?
Yeah.
How are they doing that?
So they're using these things called 3D printed microporous scaffolds.
Okay, break that down for me. What is a microporous scaffold?
Okay, so microporous just means that the scaffold has tiny pores or holes throughout it.
Okay.
And these pores are important because they allow cells to attach and grow and receive nutrients.
Got it.
And the scaffold itself is kind of like a framework that guides the growth and organization of the cells.
I see. Okay.
So in the case of the artificial ovaries, they seed these scaffolds with cells that have the potential to develop into eggs.
Wow.
And this could be huge for women facing infertility, especially those who've had cancer treatments that damage their ovaries.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's not just infertility, but it's also people who have maybe had to go through certain treatments.
Exactly.
Okay. And are they working on anything else?
Yeah, they're actually working on biofabricating red blood cells.
Red blood cells, too.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
They've created these nano-sized cells that can actually transport oxygen and carbon dioxide just like natural red blood cells.
Wow. Okay, what's the advantage?
Well, one big advantage is that they could potentially be a universal blood substitute.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, so natural red blood cells, they have these things called antigens on their surface
Yeah.
that determines your blood type.
Right.
And if you get a transfusion of the wrong blood type, your immune system will attack it.
Right. That's why we have to do blood typing and all that.
Exactly.
Right.
But with these artificial red blood cells, they don't have those antigens.
Oh, that's amazing.
So they could be used to treat anyone.
Okay. So no more worrying about blood type.
Yeah, it could be huge in emergencies where you don't have time to figure out someone's blood type.
I see.
Or maybe the patient's unconscious and you just don't know.
That's really cool. Are there any other advantages?
Well, they've also been engineered to have antioxidant functions.
Antioxidant functions.
Yeah, so they can actually protect the body from damage caused by free radicals.
Okay.
So those are those unstable molecules that can damage cells and contribute to diseases.
Right.
So not only can they carry oxygen like natural red blood cells,
Yeah.
but they can actually help fight off harmful free radicals.
That's so cool.
Like, pretty amazing.
So it's almost like they're not just copying nature. They're trying to
They're trying to improve it.
improve it. Okay. That's amazing.
Yeah. And this really ties into the broader field of regenerative medicine.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah. So regenerative medicine, it's all about repairing or replacing damaged tissues and organs. And it actually uses a lot of biofabrication techniques.
I see. So they kind of go hand in hand.
They do. They definitely do. And the sources you sent in mentioned some pretty incredible things that had been achieved with regenerative medicine by 2016.
What kind of things?
Well, scientists had induced regeneration in penises, vaginas, fat, brain tissue, even scaled down human hearts.
Wow.
I mean, it's crazy to think about it, but we're getting closer and closer to being able to regrow entire organs.
Okay, so what are like the main techniques?
So the sources highlight 4 main techniques for inducing regeneration.
Okay.
Instruments, materials, drugs, and 3D printing.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So those are like the 4 main tools in their toolbox.
Exactly. And each of those techniques, they have their own strengths and weaknesses, and often they're used together to get the best results.
Yeah. It's like they're trying to figure out all the different ways to trick the body. And
Exactly, exactly. And what's really cool is that there's a lot of research now into how the body naturally regenerates.
okay.
For example, we know that wounds that are under 2 millimeter, they actually heal without any scars.
What?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Had no idea.
And then there's the endometrium, the inner lining of the uterus.
Right.
That actually regenerates consistently. It's the only adult tissue that goes through this rapid cyclic shedding and regeneration, and it does it without any scarring.
That is pretty amazing.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I never really thought about it that way. So it's almost like they're studying how the body does it naturally.
Exactly.
And then they're figuring out, well, how can we either replicate that
Yeah.
or maybe even improve it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And 3D printing actually plays a really big role in this. They can use 3D printing to create these intricate scaffolds that mimic the structure of natural tissues.
Right.
And then they can seed those scaffolds with cells, and that helps create functional organs.
Okay.
So it's like giving the body a template to follow, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, right?
We have.
From artificial limbs to spinach leaf hearts
Yeah, it's mind-blowing stuff.
to nano-sized blood cells.
Yeah.
It's really incredible to think about where all of this is going. But obviously, I mean, we also have to talk about the ethical challenges that come with this kind of technology.
Absolutely. We have to be mindful of the potential risks,
Yeah.
as well as the ethical implications.
Yeah.
I think that's something we'll dive into in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, so stay tuned for that. Welcome back to 15-Minute Discourse. We are continuing our deep dive into the amazing world of biofabrication and regenerative medicine.
Yeah, it's incredible to see how far we've come and how fast this field is moving.
It really is. And you know what's really cool? I was thinking about those artificial red blood cells we talked about.
Oh, yeah.
The ones that are like 50 times smaller than a normal red blood cell.
Yeah, those tiny oxygen carriers.
Right. And they're designed so that they don't react with nitric oxide in the bloodstream.
Oh, that's right.
That's a huge step forward.
It is. It is. And, for those listeners who may not be familiar with nitric oxide, it's actually a really important molecule in the body.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about that.
So nitric oxide is a signaling molecule that basically tells blood vessels to relax and widen,
Okay.
and that allows for proper blood flow. But the problem is that some artificial blood substitutes, they can actually interfere with that process,
Oh, I see.
and that can lead to blood vessels constricting.
That doesn't sound good.
No, it's not good. But these new artificial red blood cells, they've been designed to avoid that interaction, so that makes them much safer for transfusions.
So it's like they've really thought of everything.
They really have, yeah.
And then, I mean, the fact that they could be used for anyone, regardless of blood type,
I know.
that just blows my mind.
Imagine, in emergency situations, paramedics, ER doctors, they don't have to worry about blood typing before giving a transfusion.
Yeah, that could save so many lives. And then I was also thinking about targeted drug delivery, using those tiny cells to deliver meds directly to, like, a tumor.
Right to the source.
Right, to the source.
Yeah, I mean, that could revolutionize how we treat so many diseases.
And reduce side effects, I would imagine.
Absolutely, because you're not flooding the whole body with the medication.
Right.
You're just delivering it exactly where it needs to go.
Okay. So we've got artificial red blood cells. What other kind of amazing stuff are we seeing?
Well, there's been some pretty incredible research on artificial eyes.
Artificial eyes.
Yeah.
It's still early days, but it's pretty promising.
Yeah. I remember reading about a retinal implant that actually restored some vision to blind patients.
Oh, that's right.
It's incredible.
It really is. I mean, it gives so much hope.
Yeah. To people who thought they would never see again.
So what are the challenges with artificial eyes?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges is just the sheer complexity of the human visual system. I mean, we're talking about millions of photoreceptor cells
Right.
that all work together to process light and send signals to the brain.
Yeah. So it's not a simple thing to replicate.
It's not, no. But the fact that scientists are making progress is amazing.
Yeah. So where do we go from here? What's the future hold for biofabrication and regenerative medicine?
Oh, I think the future is incredibly bright. I mean, we can expect to see more and more complex organs being biofabricated.
Yeah.
We've already seen successes with bladders, skin, sections of heart tissue.
Right.
Groundbreaking. And I think it was a great example of how scientists are thinking outside the box using these really innovative approaches.
Like using a spinach leaf.
Right.
Who would have thought?
I know, it's amazing.
Okay, so more complex organs. What else?
I think we're going to see significant progress in regenerative medicine as well. I mean, scientists are learning more and more about how the body repairs itself.
Yeah.
And they're developing these new ways to stimulate and enhance those natural processes.
The sources you sent mentioned that by 2016, they had already induced regeneration in, well, all kinds of things. Penises, vaginas, fat, brain tissue, even scaled down human hearts.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So we could be, like, really close to being able to regrow entire organs.
That's the hope.
So no more organ transplants.
Right. That's the ultimate goal.
That would be incredible.
Imagine no more waiting lists for transplants. no risk of organ rejection.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
could really change everything.
Okay, but beyond just replacing damaged organs,
Right.
what else could regenerative medicine do?
Well, I think it has the potential to revolutionize how we treat all sorts of diseases and injuries. I mean, imagine repairing spinal cord injuries, regenerating damaged heart tissue after a heart attack, even reversing the effects of aging.
Reversing the effects of aging. Now that's a thought.
Right.
Okay, so obviously we've got all these amazing advancements,
We do.
but there are also some ethical complexities and challenges that come with
Oh,
this.
absolutely. We can't just ignore those.
Yeah,
We need to be really thoughtful and responsible about how we develop and use these technologies.
we need to make sure they're used for good.
Exactly. We don't want to create new problems while trying to solve old ones.
Right, exactly.
Mm.
Okay, so let's talk about some of those challenges. The sources mentioned that it's been particularly difficult to create, like, hollow organs and tissues that have a long diffusion distance.
Yeah, that's right. Things like lungs.
Lungs, yeah.
Mhm.
Why is that so difficult?
Well, it's much more challenging to create those complex structures in the lab.
Okay.
Lungs, they have this intricate network of airways and blood vessels that are essential for gas exchange.
Right.
And the process of diffusion, where oxygen and carbon dioxide move between the air sacs and the bloodstream, it really depends on the surface area and the thinness of the tissues.
Oh, I see.
And that's really hard to replicate artificially.
Yeah, so it's not as simple as just printing out a lung shape.
No, not at all. But scientists are working on it.
Yeah, the sources mentioned that there was a report in 2018 about 4 successful lung transplants using bioengineered organs.
Yeah, that was a huge step forward. It showed that it is possible.
That is incredible.
But we need a lot more research to make sure it's safe and effective for the long term.
Okay, so that's lungs. Now, the sources also highlighted 3D printing as being like this essential tool for all of this.
It really is.
It's like the ultimate tool for creating customized organs and tissues.
Exactly. 3D printing allows scientists to create these incredibly intricate scaffolds
Right.
that mimic the structure of natural tissues, and then they can seed those scaffolds with cells and create functional organs.
So it gives them, like, incredible control.
Yeah, it's amazing. Control over the shape, the size, the composition of the tissues.
Okay, but biofabrication is just one part of this.
Right.
What about the body's own natural regenerative capabilities?
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can understand how our bodies repair and rebuild themselves, we can harness those powers.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some animals that are incredible at regeneration, like salamanders.
Salamanders.
Yeah, they can regrow entire limbs.
Yeah.
And if we can figure out how they do that, maybe we can apply those same principles to humans.
And there are even examples of regeneration in humans,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
like kids regrowing fingertips.
That's right. It shows that we have the potential.
So it's not completely out of the realm of possibility.
No, not at all. We just need to figure out how to trigger those processes and control them.
Now, the sources also mentioned some, I don't know, kind of unusual approaches to regenerative medicine,
Oh, yeah. Like what?
like using leprosy-causing bacteria to regenerate liver tissue.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That was some really interesting research. They found that these bacteria, Mycobacterium leprae, could actually promote liver growth in armadillos.
Armadillos.
Yeah, armadillos.
Okay.
And it didn't cause any fibrosis or tumor formation.
Wow, that's incredible.
It is. It shows that sometimes the answers can come from the most unexpected places.
Nature is full of surprises, so we need to be open to all sorts of possibilities.
Absolutely.
Okay, what about stem cells?
Oh, stem cells are a huge part of this.
Yeah, the building blocks of life.
Right, exactly. They have this amazing ability to differentiate into any type of cell in the body.
So that makes them incredibly valuable for regenerative therapies.
It does. And scientists are exploring all different types of stem cells. Embryonic stem cells, adult stem cells.
Now, the sources mention that scientists have already been able to regenerate a living thymus gland using stem cells.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's incredible. So that's a huge step forward in treating immune deficiencies and some cancers.
It really is. And there's promising research on using stem cells to treat heart disease, Parkinson's disease, spinal cord injuries. The list goes on and on.
It really does sound like we're on the verge of a medical revolution.
I think we are.
I mean, diseases that were once incurable could become treatable.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe we can even extend the human lifespan significantly.
Now, that's a thought.
Yeah.
So what's your, final thought for our listeners today?
I think the biggest takeaway is that the future of healthcare is being shaped right now.
Yeah.
by these advancements in biofabrication and regenerative medicine.
Right.
And while there are definitely challenges and ethical considerations to address, the potential benefits are enormous.
Absolutely. We've covered a lot of ground today, but we've only scratched the surface.
We have, and there's so much more to explore. I can't wait for our next deep dive into this topic.
It's a field that's constantly evolving, always pushing the boundaries.
Always something new and exciting happening.
So stay tuned for part 3 of this deep dive, where we'll delve even deeper into the ethical considerations and societal implications of biofabrication and regenerative medicine. Welcome back to 15-Minute Discourse. So we've spent the last 2 parts of this deep dive really focusing on the science.
The amazing science.
Yeah, like all this really cool cutting-edge stuff.
It is.
Biofabrication and regenerative medicine. But now it's time to go a little bit deeper, right? We have to talk about
Absolutely.
the ethics and the sort of the societal implications of all this.
Right, the big questions
Yeah.
that come with these powerful technologies.
Exactly. So where do we even begin?
Well, I think one of the most fundamental questions is access to treatment.
Okay.
So if we can grow organs in a lab or regenerate damaged tissue,
Yeah.
who gets access to these treatments?
Right. Because even now, I mean, something like organ transplantation, there are already so many people on waiting lists, and they can't all get what they need.
That's right.
So are we just going to be repeating that, but with,
Well, I'm potentially even making it worse.
yeah, with even more?
Yeah, if these treatments are very expensive
Right.
or only available in certain places.
Yeah. Or certain people can afford them and others can't.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how do we make sure that everybody benefits from these?
That's the million-dollar question. I don't think there are easy answers. It's going to require a lot of collaboration. Scientists, policymakers, healthcare providers, ethicists all need to be part of the conversation.
Everybody at the table.
Yeah, we got to figure out a system that's fair and
Right. So we almost need like a whole new ethical framework.
I think we do, yeah,
The-
because the existing frameworks, they might not be enough.
Right.
They might not cover these very unique challenges that come with biofabrication and regenerative medicine. Like what happens when we move beyond just treating disease?
Yeah. What about enhancement?
Exactly. Enhancement. Using these technologies not just to heal, but to make people stronger, faster, smarter.
Better than human.
Exactly.
Oh.
It raises some pretty serious questions. Like, imagine a future where wealthy people can enhance themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Creating a new kind of inequality.
So then it becomes like not just, I don't know, social inequality, but it's like,
Biological inequality.
so, I mean, are we going to end up with like a 2-tiered society?
I mean, it's a possibility, right? And that's something we need to think about very carefully.
Yeah. How do we make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, I think, again, it comes down to having those tough conversations, figuring out what kind of future we want, and making sure these technologies are used to benefit everyone.
Yeah. Not just making the gap wider.
Exactly.
Okay. So those are the big, big societal implications.
Right.
But then there are also just more practical considerations.
We need to make sure these technologies are used safely,
Yeah.
responsibly. And that probably means new laws and policies. Like, for example, how do we make sure that biofabricated organs are actually safe and effective?
Right.
What kind of clinical trials do we need before they can be implanted in humans?
Right. Because I imagine those trials would have to be pretty extensive.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole new frontier, so.
Yeah. Totally different than just testing a drug or something.
Absolutely.
Okay. What else?
Well, there's also the issue of data privacy. I mean, we're talking about personalized organs based on someone's genetic information.
Right.
How do we protect that data?
Because that's like the most sensitive data there is, right?
It is.
So we need to be super careful.
Absolutely. We need really strong safeguards in place to prevent misuse.
Yeah, because people could do all sorts of things with that, I imagine.
Right, and people need to have control over their own data.
Okay, so it seems like there are a lot of issues that we haven't even really thought about yet.
Oh, I think we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
I think as these technologies develop, we're going to run into more and more questions.
And more challenges, too, I imagine.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about access to treatment. We've talked about data privacy. What about just safety in general?
Right. Safety is a big one.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're messing with cells and creating tissues,
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
always a risk
I imagine there's got to be.
of things going wrong.
Yeah.
You know, like tumor formation, immune rejection. We might even see unforeseen long-term effects.
Right, things we haven't even thought of yet. So how do we mitigate those risks?
Well, I think rigorous safety testing is going to be absolutely essential. We need to be really, really careful.
Yeah.
And then even after something is implanted, ongoing monitoring is going to be really important.
So it's not just, okay, we did the test,
No, it's got to be continuous.
we put it in, we're good to go.
Yeah, it's a long-term commitment.
Okay. And then what about animal testing? Because obviously as these technologies develop,
Right.
I mean, we're going to need to do more testing.
Yeah, the need for animal models is probably going to increase.
Yeah, we've talked about the ethics of that.
Right, it's a tough one.
Yeah, how do we balance the potential benefits for humans with the needs of the animals?
Right, and I don't think there's an easy answer there.
Yeah.
We need to keep exploring alternative methods like
Yeah.
computer modeling, organ-on-a-chip technologies, trying to reduce our reliance on animal models.
Yeah, all of those really important.
But when animal research is necessary, it has to be done ethically.
Yeah, I mean, as ethically as it can be, right?
Right.
Because there are always going to be considerations there.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this has been a really fascinating deep dive. And it's clear that biofabrication and regenerative medicine are incredibly promising. But they also come with a whole bunch of,
Ethical and societal challenges.
yeah, and we can't just ignore those.
We can't just sweep them under the rug.
Yeah, exactly.
We need to have these tough conversations now.
Yeah, we need to figure this out as we go.
Exactly.
So big thanks to you for sharing all of your expertise.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a great
It
conversation.
really has.
It's such an exciting field.
Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing.
It is.
And, of course, huge thanks to you, our amazing listener.
Yes.
We're sending in all those incredible Wikipedia articles
Fascinating stuff.
that inspired this deep dive.
It really is the future of medicine.
It is, yeah. And we encourage all of you to keep the conversation going in the comments below. What are your thoughts? What are your concerns?
Let's explore this together.
Yeah, because it's something that's going to affect all of us. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of biofabrication and regenerative medicine, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to 15-Minute Discourse for more fascinating deep dives.
We'll see you next time.
Until next time, stay curious.